I'm Gab. He's Jules. Blue skies over West London. Blue are still up north in Manchester because Manchester City have been crowned Premier League champions for the fourth time in a row. Nobody in the 134 years of the English top flight has ever won the title 4 times in a row. Dating back to who won the inaugural title? Do you know?
Preston North End.
Preston North End. Very, very good. Who... Jules, we're going to get into that. Obviously, we're going to lead the show with this. I think the final match day, I found it to be incredibly anticlimactic.
We knew it.
We knew it. And look, and I tell myself, well, it's better than when they win the title with 3 games to go. Fair enough.
Yeah.
There was that moment because City go 2-0 up. Arsenal somehow concede a goal, and then there's that moment when Tomiyasu scores almost at the same time. That's you get the Kudus improbable Klaus Fischer-esque overhead kick.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, maybe we just need 2 goals for something exciting to happen.
Yeah.
And but no.
Yeah,
and who is it who resolves it? Rodri.
Again, who Phil Foden has been amazing this season, of course, for Manchester City, scoring those first 2 goals in the key game against West Ham. Been outstanding when KDB wasn't there, when KDB was there. Super impressive, really. But there's also a great case to make for Rodri to be the player of the season, to be again Manchester City's talisman. The games they lost, he was not playing, including away at Arsenal, obviously, in the league. So he still has this incredible unbeaten run while playing for this team in the Premier League, which is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, unless they play Real Madrid in the Champions League, and then Rodri or no Rodri, they're out. But
but in the league, the record is catching up with Sol Campbell, who owns the record for most competitive games.
I didn't even know this thing was a thing, but anyway. No, I mean, I knew about the Rodri thing. It just seems kind of fugazi to him. I don't need it to tell me that he is. In my mind, he's Manchester City's most irreplaceable player, and I think that's pretty obvious. I thought it was fitting that between him and Foden, that they were the 2 guys who scored.
Yeah.
Because for me, this title is about, if we have to single out individuals in what is very much a collective, those 2 guys stood head and shoulders above the rest. And if you told me, and you said, oh, Gab, the 2 key men, if you're going to pick out 2 key men for City this season, and their names won't be Erling or Kevin or Bernardo or whatever Ederson's first name is, I would say, come on, Jules. But no, but that's what happened.
Yeah, although Rodri, you could say, was maybe as well the most important and irreplaceable player last season too. But yeah, you're right. Certainly to see Foden reaching that level was very, very impressive.
Now, the naysayers are going to look at this and they're going to point out, and I think we have to report this because it's a fact, they're facing 115 charges, financial charges. The hearings, we think it's going to be November, but they've set a date. They won't tell us what the date is, whatever. There is a possibility, if they're found guilty, that they're going to unleash the hounds of hell on them, and that there is a possibility that Manchester City could get relegated, that all their titles could be stripped. Yeah. Not just relegated, they could be out of the Football League altogether.
Yeah. They could also be innocent, and they could have nothing.
Well, they could be found not guilty.
Yeah, not guilty.
I think at this stage, this stuff is so complicated. Innocent, guilty. It's just more like, are they going to be found guilty or not guilty? I said this last year when they won the treble. I'm going to repeat it now. Assuming the worst case scenario, assuming that all the charges are proven and they've cheated, the advantage that they gained, it's not like in terms of resources, in terms of wage bill, in terms of spending over the years. It's not like they're 2x, 5x, 10x the competition. They are comparable, certainly comparable, in some cases inferior to some of the biggest clubs in Europe. And they're comparable, or have been comparable, to Manchester United, to Liverpool, to Chelsea, to the other big clubs. It's been in the same ballpark. It's been more. So I think it's worth remembering that more than one thing can be true. Yeah. The people running the club, Guardiola, Begiri Stein, and the players have done a phenomenal job.
Incredible.
Despite this stuff in the background.
Yeah, which was before the Guardiola era. I know they built the foundation with that. So if they prove guilty, of course, it would have an impact on what we see now. But this is still the greatest team that we've ever seen in English football.
Wow, that's a big statement. When
nobody has won 4 in a row, so I don't see another team that could be better than them after they just won 4 in a row.
Jules, we should remind ourselves that for me, one of the things that have marked the City era is they've been smart, but they've also been adaptable to change. Obviously, going back the last couple of years, they lost Raheem Sterling, they lost Zinchenko, they lost Gabriel Jesus, all by choice instead of by being disciplined, by not saying, oh, you got a year left, here's a new contract because you've been such a big part of our success. No, they said, all right, a year left, this is the number, you don't like it, you go. The same thing with De Bruyne, with his contract, he got 2 years. And of course, this last summer, they lost Riyad Mahrez, who was older.
Cancelo left before.
Cancelo, left because he didn't like him anymore.
But still.
Gundogan, who was a huge part of last season, moved on. It's good stewardship of the club. It does sometimes leave you perhaps a little bit wanting. And if I look at City this season compared to last season's team was better, not just because they won the treble. They were better in the league.
Yeah.
And as you were telling me off air, one of the things about this season is City's record against the top 6 or the other 5 teams in the top 6 wasn't what won them the title.
No, 2 wins in those 10 games. So the 2 against Liverpool, the 2 against Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea and Villa, only 2 wins. There's a lot of draws, 6 of them, 2 defeats, away at Villa and away at Arsenal. But clearly, considering they had 7 draws and 3 defeats, there's just one other defeat outside of the one against Villa and Arsenal, which was Wolves away. There's one other draw outside of the 6 draws against the other top 5 teams in the top 6, which was at home to Crystal Palace. And the rest is only win, which means they destroyed everybody between 7th and 20. And that consistency in those games, you can look at a table and you think, oh yeah, you're going to win the title because you're going to beat Liverpool home and away, or at least at home, or because you're going to beat Arsenal, who are your competitors and your closest rivals and the contenders, etc. No, it's not this season. In the past, maybe, but this season, you won it because when you went to Fulham, you won, and Arsenal didn't. And that is eventually what made the difference.
I take issue a little bit with the destroyed word you used.
Destroyed, they just won
but
all those games.
I seem to remember, and anecdotally, and don't ask me about specific games because I'm not going to remember them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Brentford, perhaps, one of them where they beat them 1-0 at home. They didn't necessarily wipe the floor. They had a lot of close games this year where they gutted it out and won. And maybe, deservedly so. But it doesn't feel to me like they blew away the opposition with the same ease.
No, and you're right. It's because they were not as good as last season. Because Haaland has a season at 27 goals, which is a good amount, of course, but it's a human amount, not like last season. And that's why, because KDB was out for the first half of the season, and even if you get a better Foden than last year, it's still not the same because Gundogan has left, and really you haven't replaced him and his importance maybe, and what a key role he can have in the way you play with the ball. Same, Doku has been a great signing, but only by patches there and then. We saw in the last game against West Ham what he can do, but he hasn't done it consistently enough. There's flashes, obviously, the Brighton game, for example, or the Bournemouth game. But overall, it's still not consistent enough. So that's why I think you're right. They still have the best attack. They've scored, 96 goals this season in the league in 38 games. They have the second best defense. Their goal difference is plus 65 or something ridiculous like that. So they still have been very good, but to the standard that we knew. And in the end, 91 points. They're still 7 short of the 98 that they won when Liverpool pushed them all the way. They're still very short of the 100 points that they got 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So, it's a very good season because it's the 4th in a row and nobody has never done before. And that was the objective, more than winning another Champions League. The treble would have been great because 2 trebles in a row has never been done before. But I think what they really wanted was to be the first in history to have 4 in a row.
2 doubles in a row has never been done before either, apparently. And, of course, they played Manchester United in the FA Cup final. I think it's fair to say they're favourites for that one. In terms of succession, of building from here, and we'll get to Pep in a minute and his future. We talked about Foden before. I've been campaigning for Foden to play centrally. We saw it in this game. Comes at the expense of Bernardo Silva. I think it's pretty
and a bit
clear.
of De Bruyne as well, I think. But yeah.
That's. I mean, those are the two guys who play centrally, right? I mean, Bernardo Silva is the guy who went out outside. I'm trying to project forward about what Pep might do, next season. He's under contract until 2025. And when I look at this, I would imagine that we might see more of a return to, you can call it 4-4-2 or whatever, but essentially maybe De Bruyne further forward or Alvarez with Haaland. Some sort of setup like that, and then a winger, like a real winger on the other side.
And where's Foden?
No, and Foden central.
Yeah, but not at the same level as Rodri. So you're in the 4-4-2.
Yeah. But I'm not. You can call it a diamond if you like.
Okay.
Or maybe that with a back three. But I guess my point is, when I ask myself about Haaland, his critics say he's one-dimensional and hasn't been as good and blah blah blah. I think the way to unlock more out of Haaland isn't just to have him do what he's really good at over and over again, and 27 goals is still a phenomenal number. But I think it's getting him to evolve his game, and I think this is something that he can do. And I think the best way for him to do that is actually having a player with him, a player around him.
Yeah. Which was Alvarez's case when De Bruyne was injured the first half of the season. If I was Pep, I would not change anything. Now... I think he can't do it in every game, especially the top games. But I'll play Foden and KDB in 2-10s behind Haaland. I'll play Rodri on his own, and I will play Doku or Grealish on the left and Bernardo Silva for most of the right, which he can't do in every game because you need Bernardo Silva to be a bit deeper in the build-up phase of it, which I understand, or Kovacic. Or you go and get Bruno Guimaraes or Paqueta, and you put them in that role. But then you have to make a choice because then you can't play Bernardo and Foden and KDB as well if you have a winger on the left-hand side.
My question here, though, would be, if you don't change anything, to me that would be the biggest sign that, and this is taken over to Pep with his contract expiring 2025, that he's thinking of leaving, that he's not going to extend.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get a clue this summer. I think this team has to evolve. I think they need to add pieces. As you know, I'm not Julian Alvarez, very good player. I don't think he is an exceptional player. Mm-hmm. And for me, if you play with Haaland all the time and Haaland gets hurt or Haaland goes missing, even if you play Alvarez there, you're playing a very, very different style because he's got a different skill set. I would expect them. I think the clue's going to be, not expect them, but if they bring in a striker who can do some of what Haaland does, dialogue with Haaland, maybe play wide in some situations, or maybe move Alvarez back out wide, I think that's something that this team would really benefit from for the next phase of their evolution. Yeah. Right? Because we've had so many different iterations of Pep over the years. It's easy to forget that. I think he looks at this and he says, we weren't as good as we could have been. It's not just because, Haaland only scored 27 goals. There were other factors. Maybe Kovacic turned out, hey, look, he's not Gundogan, or, many reasons to go with it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be fascinated by what happens there. Obviously, KDB's got a year left.
Yeah.
Bernardo Silva's got 2 years left, and there's rumors about him maybe wanting to go, maybe not.
He wanted to go last summer already, yeah.
These keep coming back, right? Time and again. So I think at some point this summer, Pep's going to say, all right, everybody stay. We're going to go and do this again. We're going to win another treble. We'll keep the whole crew together. Or if he's thinking, you know what, I genuinely think I'm going to be around beyond 2025, then I think we could see some significant changes to this group.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he arrived in the summer 2016, so next summer will be 9 years, which is obviously by far the longest he's ever stayed anywhere. Really, he said he was tired yesterday, which you would be after a season like that, because, as you said, it was not always easy for them. They were not always great. I think there's even a case to be made that maybe Arsenal were the better team overall in the whole of the Premier League season. I know City won it, so they must be the best, of course, but that maybe Arsenal were just that little bit better overall in the whole season. So I think it would have been tiring, the disappointment by losing to Real Madrid in the way they did on penalties in the Champions League. Can't have been nice either. There's still the FA Cup, but even that, remember that period they had when they lost to Newcastle in the League Cup, when they lost at Wolves, there was a draw, they drew some games, people were saying, and City were quite quick to remind everybody there in the winning title videos. I don't know if you saw, but they used my voice, by the way. They used one of my lines in that video that gone viral. People kind of wrote them off a little bit when they were third, when Liverpool and Arsenal were doing better. So it would have been a tiring season. And I can understand where he's coming from by saying that. And maybe you're right. Maybe he sees it the same way as you, Gabby. In the sense that 9 years or 9th season coming, there's if you commit to another 2 or 3 years minimum, you're right, there's a lot of things you have to change. There's a lot of things that you need to foresee already, that you need to plan ahead. Whereas if he says, listen, this is my last season, let's have this one last dance together, whatever you want to call it, let's all stick together, and then the club can think about the future. I'm not. I'm just going to think about next year and making this squad even better, have a better Gvardiol, have a better Doku, have a better Grealish, who to be fair was in and out, have a better KDB for the whole season, all of that, and then he can go and win again, for sure.
Flip side to that is, of course, we mentioned the 115 charges before. I don't know how City can move or operate until they know how that one's going to turn out.
That's true. And Pep also said that if we are proven guilty, when the club always said to me that we were not guilty, then I walk out.
Because he says, as he said in a quote, I will no longer be your friend.
Yeah.
That's a sweet Pep. My final point on this is, I don't know who gets medals, who doesn't get medals, but whoever's in charge of the medical side at Manchester City and at Arsenal, they need to get medals. Because when I look at how the season unfolds and the impact of injuries, and injuries happen every year, and this might be another thing, maybe supporting Pep's point, that change is required and you can't sit on your laurels. This is a season in which, other than Arsenal, Liverpool absolutely hammered by injuries, Chelsea hammered by injuries, Manchester United hammered by injuries, Newcastle hammered by injuries, Spurs in the second part of the season hammered by injuries. When you talked about their performance, and Villa too, by the way, it's easy to forget because they were out for so long, but they had a really, really rough ride with injuries as well. It seems like City and Arsenal were the two teams that, with some exceptions, obviously Stones and Timber, whatever.
Haaland as well.
We're largely untouched with it. Yeah, but Haaland still played a ton of games, right?
Yeah, but he still missed, a month and a half.
But it's not comparable.
Right, for sure.
You look at this and you say, hey, that could be us next year. And how much would those injuries have hurt us if we lost our big guns for these games? And how are we going to insulate ourselves against it? We can praise the team doctors all we like, but we also know that there's a ton of luck and randomness to injuries. And that's the one thing which would maybe make me, obviously I think City would have still won the title if everybody on every team had been fit. It's highly likely they would have won the title.
Yeah.
But it would have been much closer. And some of those games against the top six that they drew, maybe they would have lost. Yeah. Because it's one thing playing. Yeah. Even United, when you've got the Muppet Show out there and it's Johnny Evans and
Casemiro
and Casemiro at center back. It's a very, very different proposition. All right, enough City. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Jules, no final day miracle for Arsenal, but Mikel Arteta achieves the club's highest points total since Arsene Wenger's Invincibles in 2003-04. Seems to me like they're in good hands.
Yeah, they are, and I know it's hard to stay positive when you're disappointed like that because you came so close and you pushed them. You pushed City all the way, and you still believed, I guess, when the game started on Sunday. It was not meant to be, but the progress is there. You could see from last season they're a better team. They didn't crumble like they did for the last 10 games of last season. They were the second best attack for a long time, the best attack in the league, the best defense as well. They've been really solid. You see individual improvement. You see collective improvement. Even for Mikel Arteta in his own management, in his own attitude, everything, the body language, is just so positive that they're going to build on this and come back stronger next year. You'll have Timber who's fit. You might have a few new players there and there. I think, again, if you keep improving, inevitably you're going to win things.
So, I think some of the young players will improve organically. Hindsight being 2020, you wonder if that money spent on extending Nketiah and Nelson had been used on another striker who maybe come off the bench. We trusted a little more. But I'll tell you what, the worst thing they could do this summer is go out and just blow a ton of money on like that big name center forward.
Which I don't think they will,
They shouldn't, because I am team Havertz all the way.
Yeah.
He's the best on earth, you might say.
Of course it is. Inter celebrate their Serie A title at San Siro, Gab, with a big party after the 1-1 draw with Lazio this weekend. But Gab, one of the guys who wasn't there was the club president, Steven Zhang, who could soon be losing the club.
Yeah, in fact, he hasn't been to Italy in more than a year, and some people say that there might be legal reasons for that.
Yeah.
So basically, as we've told you many times, they borrowed something like $400 million from a fund called Oaktree, who are also minority investors in the club. That money comes due today, the 20th of May. Now, today is a national holiday, apparently in Luxembourg, which is where sort of the financial vehicle that they're using to do this deal. So it might not happen until tomorrow. We had told you how they thought they had another investor lined up to get another loan. It's not clear. We could end up in a situation where Oaktree takes over that 68% of the club that Steven Zhang and his family own. I don't think it's a disaster for Inter, and people are going to draw parallels with Milan when Elliott took over. I think it's very different. Oaktree aren't Elliott. More importantly, Milan aren't Inter. Inter are in a much better situation than Milan were when they took over. But stay tuned. It seems crazy that they win the title and now they're in this situation. But it is going to impact also all their contract renewals. Lautaro, Barella, Bastoni, all these guys need to be extended. Manchester United win 2-0 away to Brighton. Jules, I know this will be their lowest points total in more than 40 years. And they end the season with a negative goal difference.
They do.
But can you at least appreciate how Erik ten Hag said, and I quote, the season was not good enough?
Yes, because finally he says the truth. He says something that is actually true. He's not trying to gaslighting us or anything like that. It was not good enough at all. They can still, we said, win the FA Cup on Saturday at Wembley against City and kind of save their season a little bit. But right now, they're not in Europe next season. It's been a disastrous more than not. They've been humiliated there and there by Copenhagen, by Coventry. I mean, even Newport at some point were drawing 2-2 with them in the FA Cup. So, yeah, not good enough.
The last time they did this worse than this was 89-90 season. It nearly got their manager the sack. The manager was a guy named Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
And then they played the FA Cup final. They won the FA Cup. And the rest is history. And Sir Alex became the most successful manager in the history of English football.
Yes.
So I am sure since history repeats itself, that's what Erik ten Hag is hoping for.
Okay, well, good luck hoping that, Eric, because you're not Sir Alex and you will never be. Roberto De Zerbi and Brighton confirmed this weekend that they were parting ways. And that was the last game for the club, that defeat against United. Gab, we saw this coming, though.
We saw it coming. I'm glad they put out the statement in the way they did. They did it before the final game, so you could get a send-off. Essentially, it had to do with De Zerbi's vision. They couldn't reach a deal. I think in March it came out. And my understanding is the Brighton MO is young players and veterans who you can get for not much money. Mm-hmm. Supposedly, he had a different vision. He wanted more players in the prime.
Which is fine.
To push on. It's entirely fine. I'm glad they've been honest with each other. I think his achievements at the club will stay for a long time.
Of course.
I think this season could have been very different without all those injuries. Doesn't change the fact that if De Zerbi's not right, if he's not happy, the team stinks. And the team has stunk the last couple months of the season. Yeah. So good luck to Brighton. Good luck to De Zerbi. I think both are on to bigger and better things. Jules, we're not done because we have more quick hits. Liverpool end the season in third with a 2-0 win over Wolverhampton Wanderers. But really, it's all about Jurgen Klopp.
One incredible farewell. Very, very emotional. Of course, we expected him for the last time at Anfield, with the incredible crowd with whom he created such a strong connection and bond and love, which I don't think many managers, not just at Liverpool, in the whole world, really have with their fan base. What he did and how much they thanked him for and how much he thanked them for too, of those incredible 9 years, was there for everybody to see. It was really, really beautiful.
It was, and I think, it often gets overstated and people from the outside kind of miss the point about how Liverpool see themselves as different. And we've seen it. Yeah. Benitez was also adored for a long time. Yeah. But I think the fact that they see themselves that way doesn't mean it's not real. In fact, I think it makes it more real. And it's really important for a Liverpool manager to have that dimension to the way he works as well, because there's a multiplier effect on the club. One quick thing. Wolves, of course, we know they want to abolish VAR, which I think is a very stupid thing to do, especially if you're a smaller club, because let's face it, without VAR, more big calls go to the bigger clubs.
Before,
But for him to be so upset after the game about the red card that changed the fact that the yellow was upgraded, I'm like, so what? Like, oh, but it's already been dealt with a yellow. Yeah, it's dealt with incorrectly.
Yeah, it was
it's
a mistake.
Straight red.
Exactly.
Seriously. Now I really understand why you're no longer the Bournemouth manager. I really understand why nobody in Middlesbrough likes you. Okay?
Villarreal and Real Madrid battled to a 4-4 draw, one of the games of the weekend. And Gab, you know what I'm going to ask you. And it's not about La Liga champions. It's not even about the Villarreal team. It's just about one guy in particular.
It is about the man who cued the comeback from 4-1 down. Yes, the only living Sørloth in captivity. Look, I go back to this.
He's been freed now. He's been freed,
He's running rampant. Seriously, in Europe's Big Five leagues, there are only 2 players who have scored more goals from open play than Alexander Sørloth. They are Harry Kane and Serhou Guirassy. He has scored more goals from open play than that other tall Norwegian guy who just won the title in the Premier League. I find this incredible. He scored 4 goals in this. I said they came back from 4-1 down. Okay, Real Madrid, Arda Güler, and like they're trying things out, whatever, not really into it. But still, this is unbelievable. This is completely unbelievable. And honestly, if you're the manager of Norway, you have some explaining to do. Sørloth, Haaland, Ødegaard, you got some explaining to do.
And I looked this up because Villarreal had a fascinating season where they changed managers, I think, 3 times.
Yeah.
They would finish
in the table.
Yeah, or 9th. But they have the top goal scorer at the moment in Sørloth and the best in assist in Alex Baena. So somehow, 2 of the best players this season in terms of dishing great assist, creativity, and scoring them, that is theirs, and yet it's still a very average season.
23 goals for a mid-table side without taking penalties and free kicks is just out of this world.
It is incredible.
Bayern Munich taking an early 2-0 lead against Hoffenheim and then throw it all away. They'll end the season in 3rd place. This is their worst finish since 2010-11, when, by the way, the manager was Louis van Gaal, and he got sacked in April, a year after coming within 90 minutes of winning the treble and reaching the Champions League final, losing to Jose Mourinho and Inter. I bet they're happy that it's all over.
Yeah, Gab, I think there will be. Thomas Tuchel as well, the way he left and went into the tunnel after saying, like, no, I'm not staying here. What we decided.
Well, there was that brief moment in time when you were praising Tuchel, the game against Real Madrid. Maybe you should stay.
But that, you
stay
can still
for what?
You can still
for
be
what? For more of this garbage?
I never said he should stay.
Okay.
No, that was the rumors we talked about on Thursday because his agent was seen talking to the hierarchy at the club.
He was talking to them about clearing out his locker.
Yeah, probably, and maybe the
and how soon he could leave.
Yeah, exactly. Because that second half, especially, was an absolute car crash away at Hoffenheim. Juventus kick off in a few hours. Their game against Bologna, but Max Allegri won't be there. He won't be on the bench after being sacked less than 48 hours after they won the Coppa Italia. Gab, what happens and what comes next?
This is an unbelievable story. So first of all, Paulo Montero, the former Uruguayan hard man, will be on the bench.
Hard man.
Remember on our last show, we told you they won the Coppa Italia, and Allegri kind of acted like a wild man, did his WWE thing, got himself sent off
shirt,
in
no
injury
jacket,
time.
no tie.
When they were winning, it got worse afterwards. He went after the journalists from the local paper in Turin, Tutto Sport. He got the club director of football, Giuntoli, who he blames for putting him under pressure. He said, no, you can't come and celebrate with us. Go away. And he took training the next day. And then in the afternoon, club talked to him and said, you're out of here. They said, like, this is behavior, which basically brings a club in disrepute. It's not the behavior we expect from a Juventus coach.
Totally.
I think they're right. I think Allegri's been very stupid here because, look, we knew he was under pressure. But by doing this, he's giving Juventus possibly, and it's probably going to go to an employment tribunal. A lot of lawyers will get involved.
Do you think? Because I was going to say, he's got 3 years left on his contract.
He's got 1 year left.
1 year left, sorry.
But it's an enormous contract.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a lot of money.
$20 million. But they could save on this because if they say, this is just cause. You're embarrassing us.
Yeah.
This is an administrative thing. It's not a technical thing. We don't need to pay you that final year. Either way, it looks like Thiago Motta might be going or might not. Depends who you talk to. Like Allegri, some people will always support him. But to behave like this is just unacceptable. Yeah. And you can be cynical and say the club wanted an excuse to do this. We've seen other managers behave really badly and clubs back them. But he completely misread the situation.
Yeah.
Chelsea beat Bournemouth 2-1 as Moises Caicedo scores from a zillion miles away. Jules, they end the season with 5 straight wins and a 6th place finish. So why is Mauricio Pochettino unsure of whether he'll be back next season?
Well, it's a good question, Gab. I mean, first of all, Caicedo, amazing goal from the halfway line. We saw Bruno Fernandes doing it. We saw...
And he takes aim. He doesn't just belt it.
Yeah, no.
He looks up.
But you know what I think about that? I think at that level, I think I would score from the halfway line.
Okay.
Really? So I think at that level, they should. And they would.
Maybe when you were Caicedo's age.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe not now so much at 43. Although I know I look much younger. It's another win. But like you reminded me, against teams that had nothing to play for, and even in this game, Bournemouth were maybe the better side and should have done better than losing 2-1 at Chelsea. He's under pressure because overall, you could have a feeling if you're the owner of that club that it hasn't been good enough, despite some improvement towards the end. And you're tougher than me on that. I could see some improvement. I think when Enzo didn't play, the Gallagher-Caicedo partnership works well. Cole Palmer is obviously the highlight of your season, but even Nico Jackson towards the end looked better and was better. But overall, if Poch goes, it's because they just don't think he's the right guy for this job.
Jules, it's his people who are putting out the suggestion that he's under pressure.
Yeah.
It's not the club. I think he is under pressure. I mean, I think the club are evaluating, they're going to have a review.
Yeah.
But...
And so they should.
You think they should?
They should have a
just
review,
say,
yeah.
oh, look, he finished.
Yeah, but the review might come out like, yeah, we saw the improvement, we like him, we like this, we like that, we don't like this. This has to be changed. You don't seem too optimistic for him.
I think he should stay. I think the club have some concerns about, given what we've seen from Pochettino in the past, when he starts doing well, he starts saying, okay, I'm in charge, whatever long-term project we had. No, we now adjust it to my needs. I think that is a perception. I think that's happened at Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah,
that happened
he
at
said
Spurs.
the other day, it's not my team, didn't he? Which was a bit strange from
It's
a
an odd
manager,
one.
yeah.
It's an odd one.
Bayer Leverkusen beat Augsburg 2-1, Gab. They end the season undefeated in the Bundesliga, which nobody had ever done before in that league. And the streak now stands at 51 games in all competition without a defeat. And obviously on Wednesday, they've got the Europa League final.
That's right, against the goddess, Atalanta.
Yeah.
Well, they'll try to make it 52. They're walking on air. They played the scrubs in this. They took a 2-0 lead inside half an hour. I saw stuff on there. Robert Andrich, who looks like looks like a bouncer. He's got all the tattoos and everything. He looks like a thug, right? And he scores the sweetest of back heels. I'm like, dude, what vitamins are you taking? I mean, they're like on a state of elevated consciousness. They're walking on air. They're in the zone. I don't know what else I can say. Yeah. Paris Saint-Germain went away to Metz 2-0. A lot of starters were missing, including Ousmane Dembele and Kylian Mbappe. And I was looking forward to Kylian Mbappe because he started his Paris Saint-Germain career against Metz. I thought this is a good ending, but no, he wasn't there. There's nothing suspicious about it, right? I mean, they're just being rested, right? They'll both be there for the French Cup final against Lyon next Saturday, right?
So
it's not going to end like this, right?
So when you look at it, if Marquinhos is not there, Donnarumma is not there, so it can't be a sanction. You would not sanction.
Say goodbye to Kaler.
You would not sanction all those players, right, by not taking them with you. However, after the game, Luis Enrique said about the cup final on Saturday, well, let's see who is the most motivated for it, which kind of hinted that some of those players are not in the team because they were not motivated, and especially in the game against Toulouse where they lost for Kylian's last home game.
Well, when he played all the C team?
Yeah, but the ones that played from the not C team, he didn't like the attitude. So this is a very interesting one. Barcelona beat Rayo Vallecano 3-0 as Pedri backs 2 goals and Joao Felix delivers some filth. Gab, we still don't know though if Xavi will be on the bench next season.
I'll get to Xavi in a minute, but by the way, the highlight, the Joao Felix, what he does in the build-up to Pedri's goals, the kind of thing where you see it, you fall in love, and you say,
it can be so good.
Sign him up for 20 years, and then you realize, hey, he doesn't do this all the time.
Maybe he could do this all the time.
Yeah, okay, it's fine.
Maybe he could.
Take a big pay cut, and then we'll talk, Joao. Lewandowski scoring as well.
Yeah.
By the way, fun fact, since I mentioned it, the only strikers who've scored 20 goals or more for the last 3 seasons are Erling Haaland in the league, in the Big Five leagues. Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, Kylian Mbappe,
and Lewandowski.
No, Lautaro Martinez.
Wow.
Lewandowski's
short.
What?
He's short this season.
He's 18 goals. 18 goals in the league.
He's got another game.
He's got another game.
I know.
He's got another game. Got to keep your streak going.
Xavi.
As for Xavi, look, I don't understand it. So he came out and he said what he said. And he said, I'm going to leave whatever happens at the end of the season. My family, it's not fun, blah, blah, blah. And then they go on this run. And they're like, no, Xavi, please stay, please stay. He says he's going to stay. Now there's a question mark again. Reportedly, he asked for a meeting with Laporta. Yeah. Laporta said, "Oh yeah, we'll talk before the last game of the season. I think it's against Seville." This is not the way to treat Xavi after what you've put him through. For me, for his own mental health, for his family, for all the reasons that he gave us when he left, he should walk away. He should not be put through this. And he shouldn't be humiliated like this
at
this stage. Badly. Seriously, I mean, think about who you work for. I don't know when the elections are, probably not for a long time. I don't know if it's old stuff that Xavi, of course, backed a different candidate back in the day. But man, this is not how you treat
for the club
Xavi.
as well. Yeah.
Not a good look. Jean-Philippe Mateta, who is, of course, Paris-born, bred and buttered.
Yes.
Sèvres, a suburb of Paris.
Yeah, 92 in Department 92.
Department 92. Whatever. Scores a hat trick. How about that? As Crystal Palace destroy LME's Aston Villa 5-0. Jules, that's no reason not to celebrate Unai Emery's season.
But no, they've been celebrating and partying for the last 3 days before, after qualifying for the Champions League. Thanks to the win of City against Spurs on Tuesday night. So you knew they were not going to be at their best. You knew they would not care much. Still, from Glasner's and Crystal Palace, it's pretty amazing to see Eze in that kind of form, Olise in that kind of form, and Jean-Philippe Mateta turning into prime Brazilian Ronaldo. I mean, prime Cristiano Ronaldo as well, if you want. Whatever. Just incredible. The last 10 games, the guy has had an incredible return in terms of goals and assists and everything. It's just amazing. I don't know if he can keep this up and do a Guirassy, for example, next season where he finishes with 20, 25 goals in the Premier League. But it's just been fun and well done to him, because there was a time where I think even Crystal Palace fans didn't really believe in him anymore.
Who should Arsenal sign, Mateta or Sørloth?
Oh, my God. Both. I have a front two of them both. Tottenham win away, Sheffield United 3-0, and will finish 5th this season, Gab. All told, it's not bad for the first season of the post-Kane era.
No, it's not bad at all. I mean, given the injuries they've had, given the fact that you were going in a completely different direction with Postecoglou, the man is genuine. He's not playing a character. I love that after the game they said, "Oh, would you I guess if a genie had come out of the bottle and said, 'Hey, Ange, would you sign for 5th place in the Premier League right now? It's a good result.'" And he says, "No. I might sign for 1st place, not 5th place." He brings that attitude. It's not just bluster. People can whip out Australian stereotypes. I like to think those are Greek stereotypes.
As well, probably mixed of the two.
I think it's been fantastic. Obviously, the impact of losing Kane, you can't overstate that. And Kane left and frankly wasn't replaced, because you asked Richarlison to do Kane stuff, and I mean, not many people can do Kane stuff.
Yeah.
But Richarlison's not going to do Kane stuff, and then they had all those injuries. I think they could have finished top 4 this season, which says a lot. Yeah. And by the way, we talked about other clubs that have been hit by injuries. They were hit by a ton of injuries at the wrong time as well. So I am so looking forward to see what they can do next season. Stuttgart beat Borussia Mönchengladbach 4-0 as Serhou Guirassy scores again to finish with 28 goals in 28 Bundesliga games. Jules, what's more remarkable? Stuttgart's 2nd place or Guirassy's goal-scoring heroics after a career in which the guy never really scored?
Never scored more than 11, I think, or 12 in the league when he was in France.
Once.
Yeah, when he was in France. I don't know which one. Let's not forget Stuttgart stayed up through the playoffs last season.
Yeah.
So really could easily have been in the Bundesliga 2 this year. So to go from finishing 16 and have that battle in the playoff to 2nd, it's a bit like it's a similar trajectory to Guirassy, to be fair. Incredible for both of them. Guirassy, even with that injury that he had, imagine where he would be. Maybe without AFCON, where would he be? Probably even higher than that. You just knew that he would score in that game. You just knew they would win and destroy Gladbach, who've been very disappointing this season. Well done to both of them. I don't know how much they can keep it up, but they will be in the Champions League, and Stuttgart is such a big club in Germany that they probably deserve to be there all the time. So let's see if they can keep it up.
I mean, Germany's a funny one because
but Stuttgart is a giant of German football.
It depends how you rate giant. If you look at resources, but Germany's a weird one because you've got clubs like Leipzig, like Leverkusen, for example,
Hoffenheim,
who have a lot of money. Hoffenheim used to, obviously, but who have a lot of money but aren't big clubs in terms of having a big fan base. And then you got other clubs like Schalke and Hamburg who aren't even in the Bundesliga and they have much bigger fan bases. I know where Stuttgart fits in. For me, the achievement It's a really close one. That's why it's such a great question. I actually think the achievement of going to second place from being so far down the table, weathering Guirassi's absence, is even bigger than Guirassi's improvement, because anybody can have a freak season as an individual. To do so as a club, Hernes, man, like, incredible. I don't know if he can repeat this, but wow.
So much for the mystique of the Civitas Metropolitano Stadium. Atletico Madrid lose at home to Osasuna 4-1 to end La Liga in 4th place. Gab, it's the first time in the Diego Simeone era that they are not in the top 3. Is it change is coming, or one of those seasons?
Change is coming. Diego Simeone is going to stay. But I think a lot of these players are going to be out. What we saw from that defensive line, that defending against an Osasuna team who, by the way, were really badly on the slide at the end of the season, was just pretty terrible. Obviously, they have to sort out the Griezmann situation. They have to ask themselves, hey, why did Morata stop scoring? They need help at the back. And I think Cholo needs to look at himself too, because this is the thing about La Liga, right? If you're Atleti, you can get into a comfort zone because nobody expects you to finish higher than Real Madrid and Barcelona. And if you do, you're a genius. Equally, the gap in resources and so much else between you and number 4 is absolutely enormous. So you have to really, really suck to finish 4th. Which is a pretty unique situation in European football. So I think this team needs a big kick in the backside. An injury time equalizer from Jordan Lotomba gives Nice a 2-2 draw and denies Paulo Fonseca and Lille a place in the Champions League next season. Jules, why were Nice so mean? The name suggested they should be nice.
They should be nice.
But instead they're horrible.
But they also were in there for
what?
European qualifications. So they wanted to finish on a high.
You qualified for what? For what? The Muppet Show League?
The Europa League. It doesn't matter so much.
Good for you.
It's Faioli's last game. It's Faioli's last game. It's Gisolfi's last game as well. And Lille should have known better. It's not the first time where they miss out on Champions League. They will be in the Champions League qualifiers. If they finished 3rd and won that game, they would have been straight into the Swiss model. Instead, they would have to go through those qualifiers, which is never easy. They can only have themselves to blame. Same with the last 2 draws that they had before. They were in a great position. They didn't take it. Well done in a way for Brest, who
we'll get to Brest. We'll get
4th and then finished 3rd. But it was another incredible finale of Ligue 1. Ligue 1 has been so good this season. So well done, everyone.
Other than Paris Saint-Germain.
Well, even then, Speaking of Fonseca, he's still the hot favorite to take over Milan, Gab.
Yeah, and they lost 3-1 to Torino at the weekend. The fans still unhappy, still on strike. But it's all right. They'll finish 2nd. And if I can take this moment to reflect a little bit on Stefano Pioli, who, I think we take as read is going to leave the club. I think in the last 4 years, he's got 2 second places, and he won the title for a guy who took over as an interim coach. He accepted the club's policy of young players of playing a certain type of football, which I think didn't come naturally to him, but he embraced it. He made it work. I think he deserves a lot more respect than the respect he had. Fonseca looks like it's drawing a step closer. We'll wait to see if there's an announcement they can get over the line. I think Fonseca did really well in tough circumstances at Lille. He did really well in really tough circumstances at Roma. I think it helps, actually, that he already knows Serie A. And if he's the choice, I think he's the right choice. That Lille result means that Brest, who won 3-0 at Toulouse, will play in the Champions League. Jules, give us some context here. How incredible is it what Eric Roy has achieved?
Just incredible for the Sunderland fan, for example, who remember him as a player, for the Watford fan, who remember him as a sporting director or involved with the club. It's the same guy. It's the guy that hadn't coached for 11 years since a first experience at Nice, which is his hometown, all those years ago. Given that chance by Brest and doing an amazing job. He saved them up to start with because he came to rescue them 18 months ago. And then this year, against the odds, because none of us saw them so high at the end of the season, he built this great collective unit that played so nice football with key players from like Brassier to Lys Melou to others.
I mean, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd lowest wage bill.
Yeah,
in Ligue 1.
It's just, and they have a small stadium, so small that you can't even be okay for Champions League. So they will have to move to Guingamp probably to play their home Champions League matches. Just an incredible story. Obviously, the highest finish ever. That's a given. And for him, after being ignored for all those years, that kind of revenge. I mean, it's not revenge because it's a positive one. But to show people what he can do after all that length of being not on the bench is just amazing. The guy is so lovely. And also, we work together on French TV. So,
you know, we sit here on this show, we talk about the big clubs, and we just told you in our first segment how fantastic, how awesome Manchester City are, and Real Madrid winning the title, reaching the Champions League final, and Inter doing it again, and Paris Saint-Germain winning another league. But really, the achievement, so never mind those guys, the achievement, as we said, is Stuttgart, it's Brest, it's Bologna in Serie A, if you want to include Girona there as well, sure. I mean,
for sure.
That is a feat.
But you know, Bologna are going to probably do a bus parade for their fourth place for Champions League, right? Which they should.
It's a bigger achievement. That is a bigger achievement than Paris Saint-Germain or Inter winning their league.
And Brest should do the same. Brest should be parading in the city, and those fans who've been amazing, by the way, the Pirates is their nickname, should just be like partying and celebrating and being given the keys of the city. Or
should we include Aston Villa in that group?
Yeah, we can. When you haven't finished top 4 in 41, or like, you know,
but they're maybe what, the 8th highest wage?
Yeah, so slightly different, but still a great.
No, but then they screwed it up against Olympiacos. So.
I know, but still.
And they lost to Mateta and Palace, whatever.
Romelu Lukaku scores, and Roma beat Genoa 1-0 this weekend. But Gab, will it be enough to see them in the Champions League next season?
Tell you what's not enough. Daniele De Rossi coming out and saying 6th place, which is what they are now. Not enough.
Not good enough.
Look, I think they obviously turned the club around. They had a good run. Look, they came within seconds of beating Bayer Leverkusen away. I just going down this the route because it's so complicated now for reasons that I don't need to get into. But with Atalanta beating Lecce, Atalanta, who've had a phenomenal season, of course, they're going to play in the Europa League final against Bayer Leverkusen. They've qualified for the Champions League.
Yeah.
So Roma will be going to the Champions League if Atalanta win the Europa League, unless Atalanta finish in the top 4, in which case they won't.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is so needlessly complicated, but I'm sure there's good reasons for it. And the weird thing is they're not going to know until June 2nd, the day after the Champions League final, because Atalanta have a game in hand against Fiorentina.
Right. Yeah.
Fiorentina, potential Europa Conference League winners.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Incidentally, this game, I was just thinking of the scenarios, right? Fiorentina will have nothing to play for, especially if they win the Conference League. Atalanta will have even less to play for at that stage. Mm-hmm. If you're Roma, if you're either one of these teams, you can say to yourself, hey, look, we can help Roma, right, get into the Champions League, and it's not going to hurt, not going to affect us one bit.
That's very true.
Or we can be mean. You know, it's like Nice and Lille.
I know. Also, it's incredible that the Fiorentina season and Atalanta season will finish on June 2nd, which really should not really be like. And you know why? It's because Fiorentina did so well they both did so well in Europe.
Well, and the passing of Joe Barone,
of course. But still, it's pretty incredible. June 2nd.
Newcastle United went away to Brentford 4-2. Oh, and we have a Nick Pope sighting, which makes me happy.
It makes you happy.
They finished 7th. Jules, Eddie Howe was keeping his job, right?
Yeah, I think there was a time in the season where he was really under pressure. They had those injuries, incredible injuries, to the point that they had no bench almost, apart from some kids on it.
And Jason Tindall.
He's
always there next to him.
Always there next to him. The Champions League was a great adventure, I think, and they enjoyed some moments of it, for sure. But it was disappointing in the end to finish 4th and not even making it into the Europa League and continuing that European campaign. So not all perfect, but they finished strongly. Isak has had maybe the best season of his career. Bruno Guimaraes probably as well. I don't know if they will have to sell or not this summer, but there's still something there. Even if it's not as good as last season, of course, it was never going to be as good.
Yeah, really. Look, I'm not the biggest Eddie Howe guy, but I think you have to give him credit, and I think you have to give him a pass for this season. You said because of the injuries, because of the Champions League group that they were in, because of simply the inexperience of suddenly having to play, midweeks regularly. I think it would be a big mistake for Newcastle to move on from him at this stage. Quite the comeback in the final day of the Women's Super League, Jules, as Chelsea destroy Manchester United to win their 5th straight league title. City, they were neck and neck. It was going to come down to goal difference, and I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be one of those horrible games where they just go score a ton of goals and stuff. Chelsea were they felt like they were 5-0 up at halftime. Maybe they weren't. But
no, not just about. But not far. They were 2-0 up after 9 minutes, I think. They scored the opener after 2. So they put that title race to bed very quickly because they had 2 goals. They had 2+2 in goal difference compared to City. So if Chelsea scored 5, City had to score 7 to be leveled with their win away at Villa, which they struggled to be fair.
It felt like Chelsea could have scored 10 and would have scored 10 if they needed to score 10.
Yeah, and on paper, maybe their trip to United at Old Trafford as well looked more difficult than City's trip away at Villa. But it didn't turn out to be like that. Incredible achievement to win 5 WSL titles in a row for Emma Hayes and this Chelsea team. It could have been better. They wanted a quadruple, but 10 days ago they thought that title race was over after they lost at Liverpool. And it was just Arsenal doing a massive favour to them by winning at City in the dying minutes after being 1-0 down. That changed really the dynamic of this title race. So for Emma Hayes, last ever game for now in England and with Chelsea before moving to the US women's national team. Just a perfect farewell, perfect send-off.
It's funny, just as an aside on the Women's Super League, it seems to me we have a situation where there's 3 teams that are just far and away better than everybody else, right?
Yeah.
City, Chelsea, and Arsenal. And there's only 12 teams in the league. And it seems like the other teams are just so far behind in terms of resources.
There's progress, though. Villa progressing, United, Tottenham
I guess
progressing.
what I'm saying is it kind of mirrors the men's game where we've got the 3 promoted sides all going back down. The gap would have been much bigger if not for the 4-point penalty that Forest had. I don't know. I mean, I guess this is the reason there's only 12 teams. If they had 20 teams, you'd have, in the Women's Super League, you'd have an even bigger disparity.
Yeah, you can say that. Although I think some teams are improving. Some
Is
teams
it about
are not.
money?
Yes. I think, yes, of course it is a bit when you see the squad that Chelsea and Arsenal have, for example, especially. And even City are building with probably Vivian Miedema arriving from Arsenal as a free agent. All of that, yeah, I think it makes a difference. But there's always ways you can try to catch up. And look, the FA Cup was won by United against Tottenham this season at Wembley. So none of those top 3 teams that we mentioned made it to the final of the FA Cup. So there's still some hope, I think. Girona win away at Valencia 3-1 as Savio steals the show. Gab, what a season for him.
Tremendous season. I don't like the fact that they started calling him Savinho.
Yeah.
It just seems completely unnecessary. Maybe they want to differentiate himself from the other Savio who played 10, 15 years ago. It's been an incredible year. They were 3-0 up. They ran rampant, then gave away a late penalty. Again, the City Football Group, does this take the gloss off? Not for me, because their budget this season still 12th, 13th in La Liga. It's been phenomenal. I wonder if this team gets broken up between the on loan players, between even a guy like Miguel Gutierrez, who I think was a phenomenal second part of the season. Yeah. I didn't realize that somebody told me Real Madrid still have a buyback clause.
Yeah,
they can bring him back, which might not be a bad idea, incidentally, if you decide Fran Garcia is not up to it. And no, but if you want an attacking alternative to Mendy, right? So I don't know. I just think it's been phenomenal, and I'm going to stop calling him off-brand Michel. He's not the real Michel, obviously, but he is his own type of Michel.
Yeah.
We hope our boy John Textor is recovering well from his skateboard accident, and he'll no doubt be delighted that Lyon have somehow finished the season in 6th place after their 2-1 win over Strasbourg. Jules, between that and the French Cup final, which they're going to win next Saturday against Paris Saint-Germain, who, of course, will be playing without Kylian Mbappe.
Probably.
Now, who knows? It's fair to say Pierre Sage has salvaged the season, but really 99% of the credit should go to John Textor.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you're 18th, you're bottom of the table when Pierre Sage or Stonewise takes over, and look at where they are now. They won this game against Strasbourg in the 96th minute with an Alexander Lacazette winning goal. He scored 2. The kings of comebacks and remontadas and late goals and late twists, this Lyon team in the second half of the season. That's the 8th or 9th game that they do it. Incredible, really incredible. It could get better if they win, obviously, the French Cup in Lille on Saturday against PSG. But already for them to have made it to Europe after being bottom of the table earlier in the season is just incredible. And well done to my boy, obviously, Alexander Lacazette. One of the best seasons of his career.
Ajax need to decide on a new manager. Jules, they've been linked with two guys who are both in a job right now, but not for long, possibly. Nice's Francesco Farioli and your boy, Erik ten Hag. Who would you suggest out of those two?
Yeah, for Ten Hag to go back to Ajax after leaving, obviously, to go to United 2 seasons ago. I don't know, will feel like maybe they're not the right step forward for him, I guess. For Farioli, he did well at Nice. We said that with ups and downs, obviously, but he's still a very young manager. I would like him to take that job, really. I think he would actually suit him well. He likes working with young players. I think he has great potential too. Graham Potter was also linked heavily. Seems to said yes and then no and then yes again. So I wonder where that is. But imagine if Ten Hag was going back. I mean, come on.
Why is Farioli leaving Nice?
I don't know. The sporting director is leaving. It feels like Ineos are still there, but not really. They've kind of like checked out to go to United. So maybe he feels, can I do better than 5th? Don't think so.
Yeah. But we still think Potter's going to get it?
Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
Interesting, yeah.
Leipzig let a 2-goal lead slip and have to settle to a draw away to Eintracht Frankfurt. Jules, how do you assess their season? And what comes next? No Xavi Simons?
Yeah, for Xavi Simons, we're not sure yet if he's going to go back to PSG or go on another loan, whether that's staying at Leipzig, going to Barcelona on loan, whatever he decides to do. I think he wants a guarantee to start in a big team in Champions League, which PSG, I would think, are not going to give him. But
I'm sorry.
We'll see.
Mbappe's leaving, yeah? Dembele's 50-50, right? Who is better than Xavi Simons in Paris Saint-Germain's attack, other than those people?
No, I don't know if you have Barcola on the left-hand side to replace Kylian.
You'd have Barcola ahead of Xavi Simons.
That's not what I said. I'm just saying to you, yeah, you've got Barcola in your squads. Maybe you don't want to bring Xavi Simons to be a backup. Maybe Xavi Simons wants to play. And Luis Enrique would never say to anybody, from Mbappe to Dembele, you're guaranteed to start every game, as we're seeing now. And maybe Xavi Simons doesn't fancy that. Maybe doesn't fancy to work with Luis Enrique. I don't know. I still think there's probably a better role for him than playing wide on the left like he did with Leipzig. Even as good as he was, I would see him as a 10 in a very free role. I think he can play anywhere. I think he's a great talent. But if he doesn't want to be in Paris and Paris needs money to invest on, I don't know, another position to strengthen, then you get 40 million and you move on, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
He's so good, though.
He's so good this season. Him and Leipzig have been great in some of the big matches, like against Real Madrid in the Champions League or like against City. Overall, maybe 4th is slightly disappointing in terms of league form.
But I think that's just because Stuttgart are ahead of them.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
You know, and if you look at all the changes that they made, you look at how well Openda and Sesko have clicked this year.
Sesko, yeah.
It was a big transition season for them.
Napoli are held to a 2-2 draw by Fiorentina, but Kvaratskhelia gets on the score sheet to take his goal tally to 11 this season in the league, plus 6 assists. Gab, you happy with his second season?
Yeah, I think there was this perception that it's been a down year for him when you consider that he's had 3 different managers. He's had changes of systems. It's been a zoo. He's had the contract dispute.
Yeah.
To get 11 goals and 6 assists at his age in your second year, I think is tremendous. Did he improve upon last season? No. But I think he showed that he definitely belongs at this level. Jules, we're romantics. We were fully behind Isco when he joined Betis last summer. Yeah. I was behind him when he joined Seville, but then he was terrible there.
Yeah.
He had a tremendous season, 8 goals. But there's heartbreak, as injury means his last hopes of making the Euro squad are dashed.
Yeah, we saw him coming out of the clinic on his crutches. He's getting married this summer. So at least he's got that to look forward to and to get excited with. There won't be a Euros, and you would think that was the last chance, really, for him to go to another big tournament, because in 2 years' time in the US, I think that's a bit too far ahead for him. So really,
do you think he would have been called up?
Yeah, maybe.
He hadn't been played for the national team since 2019.
It's a long time, but then maybe there were other reasons.
I don't know. He didn't play. 26-man squad, you call up Isco just to make Gab Juls happy.
Just for the beauty of the player. Globo in Brazil report that Fenway Sports Group, owners of Liverpool, are considering buying Vasco da Gama. Gab, how is that significant?
So first of all, as I discovered, Vasco da Gama have 2 of the ultimate cult players in the history of football.
Yeah.
In your boy Dimitri Payet
yes.
and the Bulldog Gary Medel.
Of course.
How awesome is that? I mean, just for entertainment value, they should buy them straight away.
True.
But actually, Vasco da Gama are owned by 777 Group. That's right, our friends from Everton. The suggestion, I think, is like, oh, look, they'll sell Vasco da Gama so that they can pay off some of their debts and maybe still buy Everton. So in that sense, Liverpool would potentially be helping Vasco. Would potentially be helping Everton indirectly. I don't buy this. This is clearly a distressed seller in 777 Group. We've chronicled how they've had assets frozen left, right, and center. They've got a major court case in New York City going on. I mean, if I'm Fenway, assuming they're interested in owning a club in Brazil. And by the way, Fenway so far have not shown much of an interest in multi-club ownership.
Yeah, that's right.
I just sit on my hands and wait because you're going to run out of money. I mean, you pick up Vasco on the cheap, obviously. Legendary club, great history, and you get the bonus of Dimitri Payet and Gary Medel. I mean, how much fun must it be a day out with Dimitri Payet and Gary Medel? Come on. After being linked with Manchester United, Ipswich Town's Kieran McKenna has now been linked with both Chelsea and Brighton. Jules, either he or his agent are getting around.
Yeah, I think maybe. I mean, to be fair, he's been outstanding. We've said that the last 2 seasons with Ipswich. I think he would be great at Brighton. I won't lie. Maybe more than a top club like United and Chelsea, which is a bit of a jungle, which the club is not in a great state, and like Brighton. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was maybe going there. Would he want to just leave Ipswich after doing 2 promotions in a row instead of having them and see what they can do in the Premier League? I'm not sure, but he's still very young, but I think he's a very ambitious manager too. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of those clubs managed to get him.
If I'm Ipswich, though, I'm annoyed at this, put it that way. Like, unless they have an understanding.
It's always going to happen.
No, but maybe they have an understanding where they say, Kieran, you're getting us up. Everybody's going to come in for you. You know, this is the compensation. If they want you, let's just be straight with each other. All that we ask is you make a decision by this date so we can appoint a different manager. I would hope Ipswich have done that. That would be the grown-up thing to do.
I'm sure they would.
It does feel a little bit like somebody's kind of doing the rounds and, you know, hawking him around.
3 players in the A-League in Australia are facing bans after being investigated for betting offences, Gab.
That's right. So Ulises Davila, who...
remember him?
Yes, Chelsea fans may remember him, of course, because he was the club some 12 years ago. And 2 others, they were accused of getting intentional yellow cards, taking money from bookies. It's an ugly underbelly. The amounts of money involved aren't huge, but then again, I guess players in the A-League, like these guys, don't make a lot of money. According to reports, Leeds United will play Southampton in the playoff final for a place in the Premier League. Jules, I'm actually somewhat familiar with these 2 teams.
Yes, you know, of course.
Who you got?
Well, I think it's going to be a great final at Wembley on Sunday afternoon. Both of them won quite easily the second leg of their playoff semi-finals after drawing the first leg 0-0. At home to West Brom and at home to Norwich. I just love watching Leeds, and I think they are maybe on paper a strongest team, a better team than a good Southampton team with Russell Martin, who is also doing a great job, who are also very entertaining to watch, with Adam Armstrong in great form. I would just slightly put Leeds as favourite.
FIFA at their Congress have approved something called football video support for trials at youth level around the world. Jules, what is it?
Yeah, our friend Pierluigi Collina is behind this. I like this, Gab. It's basically each coach will have 2 challenges per game to ask for VAR to have a look at it. So a bit what you can see, for example, in cricket or in basketball, in the NBA, you can have a review. So he's just saying, like, I think you got it wrong on this. I ask a review. Can you review it? If your review is right, then you keep it. So you keep
your challenge.
Yeah, you keep your challenge. That's it. The referee can review the pitch side monitor if he's asked by the 4th official. It's just...
This is one of the keys. It's not VAR as we know it. There's no booth. There's no expert VAR. I think there's going to be some question too about the pictures as well. Because this is kind of VAR light, meant for leagues that can't afford to invest in VAR. But the coach can challenge and then every goal is going to get automatically reviewed as well.
Yeah.
And then the referee comes over, looks at the pitch side monitor, and makes a decision.
Like in the NBA, if you're an NBA fan.
A little bit like that. Well, except in the NBA, they have all those nerds there who prepare the pictures for them. Here, it's not necessarily going to be the case.
KV Hoostend will file for bankruptcy, Gab, on June 3rd after failing to secure a professional license. They avoided relegation out of the Belgian second division, but they might disappear altogether.
Yeah, and look, the reason we're bringing this up is because of the many Oostende fans. No, I'm just kidding. No, the reason we're bringing this up is because what it got to, the administrator who's filing this put a lot of blame on the ownership. It's something called Pacific Media Group, run by a fellow named Paul Conway. You may remember him. There was a moment in time when people were like, he was involved with Barnsley before. We were like, oh, Barnsley, this is so brilliant, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They're so smart. He's been involved with Nancy, with Iceberg in Denmark. These are the perils of multi-club ownership. Yeah. This is an extreme case. There's some very serious allegations leveled at him. Allegations which I'm assuming he denies and he's going to fight in court. Court's going to establish that. But let's just think long and hard about whether this is a good thing, your club being taken over. Oostende were never going to compete for the Champions League or whatever. It seems to me like this whole thing was just about making money off transfers rather than building any one of these clubs into something significant. I get the whole synergy argument. But this is a really kind of worst case scenario and maybe a warning to everyone. Jules, this brings us to an end. We're going to be back on Thursday after the Europa League final.
Of course.
You're going to take a few days off after that because my understanding is you won the ESPN Fantasy Premier League and you won a 4-figure sum and you'll be spending that money by taking some well-earned days off. Well done, Jules. But anyway, we're going to be back Thursday. So until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.